Good morning, everyone. Right, so welcome to the session on moving from data to smarter data. Joined this morning by, in order, Jason Wickens, who's the CEO of Incito. To his right, Rebecca Taylor from Golding Homes, and Chris Fleck, who is the Chief Product Officer at Mobysoft. So, starting us off, I have a question for you, Jason. And that is, we've heard a lot about being data rich but insight poor. From your perspective, what's the biggest barrier stopping housing providers from turning data into meaningful actions?
Yeah, so good morning, everyone, first of all. If you see me looking at my phone, I know what I'm saying, because I know I'll forget some key points that I wanted to say, first of all. I would say these, you would have heard a lot of these that I'm going to talk about before, but first of all, I think siloed data and systems, it's a constant challenge that we're working with clients on. I think I'm going to pick up some of the sort of parts I'll speak about today are the themes that we're seeing with the client engagements that we've had, and what those siloed systems do is allow for the data to not be the most connected. I also think that we see quite a lot of poor cultural aspects with regards to data. So poor data management. People are not necessarily seeing data as an asset. So it's about really starting from the top, and that's again going to be a bit of a theme as we go through some of these, around making sure that people see that data is something that should be treated just as important as our homes or our customers or kind of like, our colleagues, really. That would be my, I guess, initial key thoughts.
Fair enough. Anything to add?
Yeah, I think for me, it's people try to go big with data. They try to solve all problems at once, and that A, never works, but B, completely disengages, I find, colleagues who, let's be honest, we haven't recruited people into roles knowing that they're going to be great with data or have any interest in data. The world will need to move on with that, but for the time being, we're stuck in this cycle of people who are great at their day jobs, but we're now asking them to do things that they don't have the skills for, potentially, they don't have the interest in, they don't have the passion for. So for us, it's slightly easier for us because we've got under 10,000 homes. We don't have the huge data sets that some others have. But being able to chunk that down into something that's real for people rather than this kind of mythical, go and fix your data and then come back to us when you're done, I think changing that mindset is absolutely fundamental, but very few are getting it right at the moment.
Do you see it as a long burn?
Oh, absolutely. Yeah, we'll still be talking about this in 10 years' time, but the problem will have moved on to something else by that point.
Hopefully not, but you're probably right. Chris?
So for me, I've got a slightly different perspective. For me, it's very much less about data and very much around organisational design. So as an outsider, I look at social housing providers, and you're geared around compliance, around risk management, around delivering services, and that's okay, but that's not geared around using data in a really intelligent way and being able to react to it. So the design you have today doesn't really fit the whole idea of a real-time dynamic system. And for me, it's really, you're almost trying to build a digital nervous system that's real-time, responsive, you can react. And therefore, the org structures you've got today need to shift and evolve to be able to support that, have data flowing through really cleanly, really, really reactively, and allow you to respond, rather than as kind of very rigid structures. So for me, data is kind of an adjunct, but it's really the org design and the way in which the organisation is geared around consuming data and working with it.
Okay, well then, taking that organisational gearing and turning to a point that you made about maybe some of the struggles of organisations trying to place their bets from a resource point of view. From the frontline perspective, could you share any kind of thoughts and examples on where those insights have been implemented and made a tangible difference to tenants' lives?
Yeah, so we've got a couple of examples for this that span a couple of different areas that, again, talk to that point of doing things on a small scale and then building out rather than going big bang. So first one I'm going to talk about is the work that we've done around our EDI analysis, which you say the words EDI to most people in an organisation, you get the eye rolls, you get that, oh God, I've got to fill out a big long template to be able to make any changes, or all of that good stuff. And for me, we've been able to start taking EDI data without really telling anyone why we're doing it or what we're doing, but presenting back the difference that it makes. So we've got a program of overlaying our EDI data over our core service delivery. So we've done it across ASB, across income collection, across repairs, using the results of that to then be able to say, did you know? So one of the things we found really recently is the biggest users of our repairs service are females between 30 and 39, who are also our most dissatisfied customers as a cohort. That's then meant our comms plan has now been completely rewritten to be able to tailor to that 30 to 39 age bracket, talking more around things such as the school run times that we offer, or we commercialise an aspect of our repairs service to be able to help customers who can't necessarily fix the shelf that needs to go up or the lock that needs a bit of adjustment. And so being able to tailor that and be able to make it real for people has helped our colleagues to understand why it's important we have that data and why it's important that data is as up to date as it could be. The other aspect that's been really powerful for us, we have a partnership with a company called Zentura, sorry, not Mobysoft, who we work with them to provide them with our vulnerability data of our customers. They then work with our local authority, Maidstone Borough Council, and we've been able to run a programme to prevent homelessness or those at risk of homelessness through really targeted interventions. As of this couple of weeks ago, for the first part of this year, we'd been able to prevent, we think, around 100 cases of potential homelessness. Some are our tenants, some are those on our waiting list, and it's been able to really help us target the resource. So the business case writes itself, if we can put resource in there to be able to really analyse this data. But it also, again, starts bringing it to life of if we've got that vulnerability data, that disability data, this is the power that it holds for us to be able to really start pushing ahead with our more vulnerable customer base.
It's a very good use case and story. So I guess you were talking more to a joined up approach there, which then I think then leads me to a question for you, Jason. So from the point of view, predictive analytics and AI, and everyone has used it in some way or another, and probably professionally as well, though they probably also don't admit that, but that doesn't really scale. From your point of view, what's the best place to start when somebody wants to start implementing not just AI, but an approach to taking predictive analytics seriously, and where AI might fall within that? Where do they begin?
Yeah. So I think, just for a little bit of context, we're a consultancy that look at tech, data, and transformation. So we kind of will look at it from three different angles. I would say, first of all, AI is out there, right? We're probably all tired of the buzz, but I think it's become a little bit of a white shiny thing that everyone wants to go for. But ultimately, for me, it's start with the problem. We are jumping to, we need AI, we need the solution, we need the tech, and that's a lot of the time we spend a little bit of time with clients saying, but what is the thing that you're trying to solve here? What is the pain point that you're trying to get underneath? Then we'll look at the solution. Because a lot of the time, I have to say it, they either already have the technology or they already know what the problem is, and probably it's a difficult conversation that needs to be had. So I'd say, first of all, start with the problem. Don't go to the solution, first of all. And obviously AI, I'm sure there's a room full of AI experts here, that AI is an umbrella term across a number of technologies. So that'd be the first point. The second point would be you've got to look at your data quality. We're often we're probably already tired of hearing that, but we keep jumping forward to, I need an AI strategy, I want AI in my business, and it's great. It's an inroad conversation. It starts the discussion, but ultimately, if you've got bad data in, you're going to get bad intelligence. You're not going to get the right stuff. So really getting that sort of culture, that really enforced view of data quality. And I'd say, lastly, really simply, you'll see from my answers, I believe in making it simple and not overly kind of complicated, is start small, learn and scale. So don't try and do things immediately. Don't try and go in with this huge piece of technology or huge organizational change. Look at what else is going on in your business. Take one small use case, learn from it, and then look to scale it. Because actually, once you've shown people the power of the tech or what AI can do or good quality data, it makes that delivery much, much easier.
That's a good point, because we all want to be going 100 miles an hour immediately.
Yep.
And it's not quite that easy. So you mentioned starting small. Do you have thoughts to maybe where those use cases hide, or where they live? What's the quick win or low hanging fruit there?
I think, and it's a question we get asked. First of all, we go in with the client and they say, "But yeah, can you help us deliver this?" Or "What are the big things I can do now?" It sounds really basic, but it's proven. It's a proven approach to look at, if you know, for those of you that have done Agile and you look at product backlogs, start where you know, cataloging where your data issues are or what solutions or problems you're trying to solve, and go through a process of prioritizing them. Whatever criteria you're using, collaborate with those experts within your organization, and simplistically put, do a bit of a quadrant analysis, take those that are going to have the biggest impact with the smallest effort first, because it will give you, and again, each business is going to have probably a different set of criteria that they're going to want to use, because all businesses are different. But in the main, as social housing providers, we are all trying to do the same thing for our customers. So I'd say, yeah, just prioritize and take the one that feels right for you to start with, rather than do too much at once.
No, makes sense.
Could I just add to that? I think I can't underestimate the importance, particularly I look after the back office, traditional back office services. We've all got lovely ideas of where we think AI could make a huge difference. Go and shadow, go and sit with your teams, go and sit with your customer services team. We were shadowing with them last week, and what we think is working really well, you see in practice and you go, "Oh my God, I'm so sorry we've done this to you. Let us now try and go away and fix it." But they would have been shouting that at us for months. They'd have raised all the tickets in our IT system that you could raise. And we would have gone, no, it's all okay. So go and sit with the teams. You will find problems that are easily fixable, whether it's AI, automation, whichever, easily fixable, that wouldn't be the ones that are at top of a project list or that are going to have this really big bang impact. Go and speak to your people. They will give you the use cases to then really start working through, and it will have the biggest engagement with them, because they'll see you fixing their real problems, not the "we need a new system" type problems.
So I guess we're sort of starting from the beginning and the low-hanging fruit and trying to scale up. So Chris, I have a question for you on scale and sustainability. So may sound very sort of high level, but from the systems and architecture point of view, Chris, and when you were trying to build, get the building blocks together for smarter data, where do people kind of fall over? What do they overlook? What should they be thinking of now and in the future?
So I think from a technology perspective, the things to think about and really consider are not just technical. So for me, it's around architecture in terms of the business sense. So almost that sense of flow of data. So don't just worry about data, is it clean? But actually, how's data going to get to the end consumers? How will they use it? Do they have a semantic understanding that is common across the business? So when I work with our customers, one thing that's really obvious is there's a definition of something, a repeat job, an arrears, or a certain situation for a customer. And the definition of how those problems exist is not always consistent across the business. So there isn't this kind of common semantic understanding. I think having a semantic understanding across the entire organization is really, really critical, really important. I think the other piece is this kind of data to decision flow piece in terms of design. So it's no good just having lots of data and getting it into the hands of people. It's how will they consume the data? What will they do with it? What actions can they take? So it's making sure that you've got consumability built into the things you're designing. Otherwise, you end up with amazing data. It's all clean. It's all coming together really beautifully, and you can't do anything with it. So it's around looking at, we're going to give you a block of data, almost to Rebecca's point in terms of, I'm sorry we've done it to you. You've got a block of data. It's being really crystal clear about, now I've got this data, how do I action it? How do I consume it and do something to support our customers? I think those are the things that often get missed. It's often a very kind of technical activity, but it's not. That's a piece of the puzzle. It's about consumability and that kind of path of flow and using the data.
It's a good answer. I might steal that. So we've kind of spoken about the beginnings, the sustainability, the scalability, and you mentioned on some of the maybe more housing oriented use cases. But in any industry, you have a tendency just to kind of know your own four walls and your parameters, and sometimes it takes a while for new information to flow in. So I turn to you, Jason. So I understand you've worked across a number of industries and sectors, and what have you observed, I guess, outside of housing that could potentially be brought in when contemplating, manipulating, using, or getting the best use out of data? whilst trying to maintain a livable version of risk?
So I think firstly I have to say I've had the privilege, and I do mean that, of working in social housing for about 8 years now. But prior to that, I worked in financial services. I've done some work in retail, in telco, and I'd say the biggest difference I think I've seen, even from, and you can say now that I've been out of those sectors really, and as a consultancy we specialise in social housing, but out for 10 years. But I would still say even back then, it was much more real time. The data felt more live. The data felt more something that was living and breathing within a business. I do think that's changing in social housing. To a certain extent, I think that behaviour is probably being driven, if I'm being honest, by some regulatory behaviours and where the regulator's starting to look and asking the right questions. But if I go back to my financial services days, data was very much used more as a true decision point. So yes, you went with gut feel, yes, you went with experience, but the conversations were, why are we doing it in this way? What is the data telling us? So launching new products would go to market in certain ways, purely based on data. And we would use data to prove or disprove hypotheses before you would look to do something. And I think in the retail sector, so I did some work early with the sort of merge, if you remember, of Dixon's Carphone and Carphone Warehouse, etc., and then on to the sort of more retail business. And even now using those as parallels, as examples with like Amazon, we're all consumers and users of those types of services. They use and consume data in such huge quantities in real time that you're literally positioned experiences and scenarios based on data. So I think the opportunities of using data in a more real-time way, and I truly mean that more than dashboarding, and we can use words like proactive versus reactive. I think we are in a sector that has, for many, many, many years, probably suffered from some technical debt, and we're now looking to catch up in that area. But yeah, for me, I think the real-time aspect, and I'm going to sound like repeating myself, but really seeing data as an asset. If you see that within your business and you truly adopt it, it can tell you things that you perhaps weren't necessarily aware of.
That's okay. So I have a follow-up question, one that none of you would have prepared for, but I'm sure you have thoughts. You won't have it on your phone. I'm very sorry. So you mentioned the use of data and the different experiences coming from retail and business, but of course housing has a different set of needs and responsibilities. Just off the top of your heads, because it's unprepared for, but ethical considerations when it comes to implementing data at scale. What would you like to, I guess, share from your experiences?
Shall I go first?
Yeah.
Just because it's on my mind. I think I'll be honest, we have yet to work with any clients, and we have worked with clients of all types of scale, all types of geography, work with anyone that I would say has taken an unethical approach to their data. I would say in housing, and I totally understand why. I've been in it 8 years. I can't say I'm a newbie anymore. With the regulatory impacts, there is a lot of fear. And I think sometimes that actually constrains our ability to use data in the way that we would like to use it. So I would say, again, sounds a little bit consultancy, a little bit cliche. Use guardrails, not handcuffs. Be clear, take a common sense approach to data. And if it's done collaboratively, you're going to have your specialists that, like your ITDs, your CIOs, your DPOs, and your governance people that are going to keep you safe and honest. But don't let that constrain your ability to look and use data in a different way. So I'd say my experience and the clients that we've worked with, thankfully, I haven't really seen any sort of ethical issues that we've had to deal with. And we've had Golding as a client, so and they're fine.
Yeah, we've hid it all in the cupboard when he came. I think for me, actually, we have been unethical with data as a sector up to the last couple of years. We didn't look after it. We didn't update it. It sat and got old and lost its value. And we were developing services and delivering services based on that really old data. And for me, it's great that we are all now talking about this. We're all now moving on. We're all grappling with it. Let's be honest. No one's got this right yet. But the lack of attention we gave it, and when I first joined Golding just over a year ago, data sat in the IT team. It was IT's asset. It was for IT to look after, their way or no way, almost. And that was fine for the rest of the business because it meant they didn't have to worry about it. They didn't have to think about it. They didn't have to look at it. Now we're saying, actually, it's your data. We want you to own this. We want you to look after it. Customers, we want you to look after your data. It's your responsibility as much as ours. That drive to share the ownership, risks that come with that, but the drive to share the ownership, I think, is us moving into a much more ethical space with data.
Well, I'll return to that because I have some more thoughts. This is a primer for a regulatory question down the road. But Chris, what are your thoughts to that?
So we're in a slightly different situation. We're a software vendor, as many of you will know. So we have lots of customers' data. So looking after it, protecting it is at the core of what we do. That said, I do think it's really important to try and push the boundaries. We've got protection mechanisms in place. And so for me, it's how far can we push it? What value can we get from the data whilst respecting legality and looking after our customers' data? Because that's really critical to us. So for me, it's a very different perspective in terms of how far can we push it and what insight and what value can we find from that data without breaking anything legally or regulatory wise. So there's a push.
Well, so I'll return back to the script now. But the reason I asked that question is because, the branch from behaving ethically is trust and transparency, not just with tenants and the customers, but also internally and your staff. And so I have, a question to, anyone who wants to take it first, maybe Rebecca this time, on, how does one actually go and build that culture where, people feel confident internally that they can, act on the insights that are being returned from the data once you've wrestled it from the IT department?
Yeah, it's a really interesting one. And for my organisation, the technical management of the data isn't our problem. We've got ways and means to do that are evolving. It's helping people to not be afraid of that data, and that fear for us spans across multiple layers. So fear of what the data is going to tell them is probably first and foremost, but also fear that they're going to do it wrong, that it's not their skill, it's they're trying to interpret things that they just don't understand. When I first joined Golding, my data team were beavering away, building all of these beautiful dashboards. And they were beautiful dashboards that had lines and lines and lines and lines of data that you looked at. And I'm a data person. I like it. I'm a geek. I looked and went, oh, my God, I don't know what to do with all of this. We have 25 pages on one dashboard. It was hell. Getting them to a point where actually dashboarding is really important, but only if it's showing you the right thing. And so we worked with our repairs service first because such a central service for us. We built them a dashboard that had 3 core metrics on it. That was it. It took us a day. There you go. Use that. To start with, it was, oh God, I don't know what this means. I'm not a data person. No, you don't have to be. We'll build it in a way that tells you what you need to do with it. And the engagement we then started to get from your typical trades type people who aren't normally in this way inclined, they started to want more, and that thirst started to build of, oh, now you're showing me that. Actually, it would be great if I could also see this on top. They don't necessarily speak the language, but having that skill in your IT and data teams to be able to interpret is really important. We had a great example with our assistant director of repairs. He came in same time as me. The repair service was on its knees. We had a whip and a backlog that was beyond anything I'd seen before. He walked in and went, oh, we got a job to sort here. Yes, absolutely putting the pressure on the trades to make sure we were delivering appointments, but data was the first thing that he said, I need to know what we're doing and when we're doing it. It's taken us probably a good 6 months to get to this point, but we're now at a point where we have a really clear view of our upper control limits on our repairs services for each type of trade. So we've worked with him to be able to say, right, what's your early warning indicator? So as soon as you hit 1,200 jobs, that's it. That's your upper limit. That's when you need to start moving resource around. It's when you need to start thinking about your active workforce planning. We've now got it to a point where the backlog is completely gone. We're into BAU. That was over about an 8-month period. And the staff are much happier because they can see, actually, I've been shouting saying I've got too much work to do, but I had no evidence to be able to justify it. Now we know that once that trade hits that level, we need to bring more resource in for you. We need to shift some stuff around. It's still all data, but for our repairs team, they're now looking at it as, actually, this is helping me to do my job. This is helping me to serve the customers. This is making sure that I'm protected in the work that I do. And the engagement we've got from that, the fear is gone completely. They're asking, victim of our own success, they're asking for more and more and more, which is a separate challenge. But it means that people buy into what you're trying to do without walking away being completely switched off by black and white data.
I would probably, oh, can you hear me? There you go. I would probably say you need to build the culture of data in your organization, what that means, data management, data governance, and the actual practicalities of that. It's not the most sexy and interesting thing initially to get in, but it's absolutely core and fundamental to putting those foundations in. I also think what we've seen really beneficial with clients is start small. I keep saying this, start small, take an example and see it through to the end. Because too many things, we've all, I'm sure, experienced transformation that starts a 3-year transformation program, yet another big change, and we don't ever really end. And I think the sector's actually pretty poor at, FS was definitely much stronger on this. You go right back to the original CBA. Did you do what you said you were going to do? Did you spend what you said you were going to spend? And did it deliver what you said it would? And if not, there's a whole lessons learned done. And I think that's one of the key aspects that we have to look at as well. But I also think having that governance in place is one step. And again, being totally open, I can say this 8 years in, I think one thing the sector has been scared to do, I don't think there's been negative intent, I think generally scared, is to hold people to account. So if the governance is there and you are a data owner or a data steward or whatever vernacular you're going to use in your organization, it's your job to do it. It's part of your job. It's not additional, it's part of your job to sort of consume and manage that data. So it's a strange, sector in the case to be in, because in FS again, your performance was directly driven, and then you got a bonus. So other than being financially rewarded, it's just a personal conviction to want to do a great job. So I'd say there's definite opportunities there, but it's the governance, but holding people to account.
Well, I mean, if I kind of take those thoughts, then it sounds like if you can instill the natural curiosity in it, then you can get your staff to become empowered by the data. But unless, from your point of view and that perspective, if you don't do what you say on the tin and follow through and deliver, even if it's the smallest starting point, then you're destined for a tricky time of it.
Yeah, agree.
Chris, have you anything to add to that?
Yes, for me it's about trust. Not so much trust in the data, but trust in the teams that are consuming the data. So your people on the ground know your business probably better than anyone else. They understand what's going on with the repairs, with the income, and it's enabling them to take the data that you give them and allowing them to challenge it, to understand the transparency of it, so that they really, really believe in what you're giving them and they can action that data for you. And if that trust isn't there, then they won't believe the data, they won't do the right things. So it's how do you encourage them to challenge the data, to understand how it's getting to them, how it's made up, where it comes from, and giving them a feedback loop in terms of being able to feedback and get things corrected, updated, so that they feel really empowered to consume that data and do something useful with it. So for me, it's all about trust.
Makes sense. So the last couple of questions have been a little, let's say, inside looking out, turning it over, outside looking in, from thinking about ultimately the people who are most important, the tenants. I'd like to ask you, Rebecca, your experiences and use cases around how that data has been used to improve, real tenant outcomes, beyond, how internally might be used for reporting or compliance, whatever it happens to be. Outside in, how have tenants' lives become, better as a result?
So a couple of examples that really kind of spring to mind on this. Repairs is a key one for us because we know it's a driver of dissatisfaction. You get your repair service wrong, you've got no chance of having happy customers at the end of it. But the balance that we all have to strike is delivering a good service that's compliant with the various rules and regs that we have, whilst also maintaining customer satisfaction. So we can't just go in, finish a job and leave again. We have to have skills that we didn't need before. So we've done a big campaign over the last year or so to update all of our customer data to make sure it's as accurate as we can get it. That's been really revealing for us. So we all know that the disability rate in social housing is high. We have had 60% of our customers have self-reported to have a disability of some kind. You combine that with your aging population, so about 20% of our customers are over the age of 65. That's only going to grow. You combine both of those factors together, you're looking at a repair service and think, actually, you're also going to have to be a social worker. You're also going to have to hold customers' hands to do particular things that you wouldn't have done 10 years ago. So we've been really thinking about how we reshape our repairs service to be able to fit that changing need. And we've now combined our forces with neighbourhoods and repairs to be able to offer a bit of a one-stop shop for customers of, yes, your repair operative is there to fix whatever he or she is there to fix. We can't get away from that. But we now have a neighbourhood model that is very much focused on being, as we've branded it, local and listening. So our patches are small, deliberately so. Our colleagues have been upskilled in areas that we wouldn't have upskilled previously. So we've put a big push on things like domestic abuse, autism awareness, how to engage with customers who have got varying needs. Combining those two things together and then being able to overlay the data to say, where are our hotspots, not just for volume of repairs or volume of ASB cases, but where are our hotspots for customers who have self-reported disabilities? Where are our hotspots where we've got customers with lots of under 5 aged children? And we've now been able to truly workforce plan around that in a way that we probably wouldn't have dreamt of 5 years ago. Meaning that from a customer experience perspective, we're not just going in, fixing their tap and walking away again. We're going in, we're fixing their tap, but we're also having a conversation with them about their benefits that they might be entitled to. We're bringing our neighbourhood colleagues in to potentially give them information on the support services that are available. And the roundness of that conversation is much more genuine. And as a result, our TSMs, still not where we want them to be, but we've seen a 10% increase from last year in our overall satisfaction rate, and we're putting that largely down to our repairs and the new approach that we're taking to it.
I think that's really important because it isn't just data, it's actually the other side of that data part is the actual human impact and what your efforts mean to people's lives, which is ultimately probably the most satisfying thing of everyone in this building is trying to achieve. Is there anything to add on that before because I'm going to try and loop this back to the beginning now.
No, not for me.
Oh, well, in that case, looping it back to the beginning. There's been some various pieces of conversation. You mentioned handcuffs and you mentioned starting small and working forward and, data quality being a little, a dirty word. I'm going to consider a dirtier word, data governance. Mm-hmm. So on one side, you have data governance. On the other side, you have this desire to experiment. So you want to have a certain freedom to go and be able to, experiment, start small, and build something that has meaning and value. So, I guess from your experiences, starting with you, how do you balance these two things?
Mm-hmm. Okay. Saying handcuffs is going to be the quote of the week, right? That's going to be printed somewhere of me saying that. I would say very often we see that they are opposing, right? Governance versus innovation. I have a slightly different view, which is we still have to operate businesses. We still have to achieve what we're trying to do as an organisation. And they're a little more symbiotic than perhaps they need to be seen. It is a scale. And I think the biggest opportunity that you can do, what we have done and the approach that I would always say to anyone taking this is involve your governance people in the innovation. Don't do it in a room on your own and tell them that this new thing is coming. Their job is to keep you safe and stable and honest. And actually that's a skill set in its own right. And that's whether we're talking data governance or if we're talking true governance professionals, their job is, as I say, to keep your organization safe. So, I think for me, 2 main big points is include them in it so they know it's coming. And actually they might be aware of things that true innovators are, because it's a luxury to be an innovator. You don't have to think about often the practicalities. You're thinking about the opportunities. And as I say, there's pros and cons to that type of skill set. But a real theme, I know I keep saying this, start small. We go big on these innovation things, and we often will go in with many clients with a brief of, we've had somebody in, or we've attempted to do something and it's gone wrong, or it hasn't delivered what we wanted. What do we do? And it's about making that a much more digestible change for an organisation to receive.
No, it makes sense. It makes a very good point. As tempting as it is to pop down to the end of the garden and build something in your shed, if you haven't told the business what you're doing, you're going to run into run into problems. So I guess I have a supplemental for you, Chris. Then you've worked in some sort of fairly large tech. I'm kind of curious then. Any recommendations maybe for say safe experimentation? How would you encourage someone to go and innovate solutions in a handcuffed or data governance sort of way?
Well, I think Jason's described it. It's that kind of almost clash of two cultures. Governance is around risk management, around control, but innovation is all around risk taking, and critically, it's around failure. So that acceptance of I've tried something, it didn't work, and here I am. I've got to report back up to my chief exec and my CFO and say we've spent 150k building something, and it's failed. So it's providing the right structures internally in terms of sandboxes, in terms of the governance guys can have a look and oversee what we're doing, but it's having the culture and the ability to accept that we're going to experiment with things, that we will fail, that things will go wrong, and that's okay. It's the only way you can progress forwards. So it's that development of the right culture to accept that failure is going to happen, and a desire to want innovation and new things to be done internally, and that's very different to governance, which is computer says no, kind of a lot of the time.
Yeah, you need to be able to. I think remove the fear of failure. It's okay to fail, but learn and move on. And otherwise, how do any of us progress, right?
Yeah.
So then, this is just a generic question to everyone from all that we've spoken about. If somebody, if a provider wanted to take that first step tomorrow, what piece of advice would you give them? And I'm going to start at that end and move this way, Chris.
So my obvious answer is buy Mobysoft. But everyone's chuckling. Come on, we're a data and analytics company, and we're here to help you innovate in terms of providing a better service. So one of the things we're working on today is we're building Property Sense, an overarching platform full of analytics, and we're building a thing we call the Mobysoft Property View, which is our prescriptive and predictive view of every customer that you've got. And so it's around helping you understand at this point in time, for this customer, what's the right service we can provide? So ultimately, I look at social housing businesses and think, are you tech companies, should you be taking those kind of risks? Or should you be focusing on delivering services to your customers? And so my view is you should focus on delivering services and be taking advantage of that, the whole kind of buy versus build piece in terms of buy the expertise and the knowledge and the data from someone that does it day in, day out. So I think stick to your knitting is kind of my view in terms of innovation, and lean on people that do it every day.
Fair enough. Well, it's an agreeable bias that you have. Rebecca.
So I'm not going to tell you to buy Mobysoft, don't worry. I think for us, what's worked really well is starting small. We took one thing, one idea, whether that's a data field that you're trying to cleanse the data on, whether that's a dashboard you're trying to build, whether that's a bit of predictive analysis you're trying to do. Don't be overly ambitious. Take a really small thing that you know you can do, albeit it might be slightly clunky, albeit probably a bit of manual work around that you're having to do. Take that one thing, shout about it as loudly as you can, get your execs engaged, we've got our board engaged in a lot of our data development. Use that as your starting point and your springboard to then start scaling bigger. And to Chris's point, fail fast and celebrate that you failed, because it means that you've tried. And I think that's what, as a sector, we need to get a bit better at. Final thing, talk to other people. We are so bad as a sector for all trying to solve the same problems, all spending our own money trying to do it, and not talking to each other about it. You take AI, we're all doing AI pilots, so why don't we talk to each other about them? And actually, you pilot that, we'll pilot this, and we'll all come together and see what worked and what didn't. It's customers' money that we're spending. We need to do it wisely. So I think they're the learnings that I've taken from the work that we've done at Golding.
I'm going to pinch the last one. I've got two because I'm going to pinch your one. The whole collaborate piece, absolutely critical. We've seen that more and more with more clients, that actually all we're starting to do is signpost them to work that we've done with other clients. Because with all due respect, you're trying to solve literally the exact same problem that we've just spoken to these guys about. So that is a really, really key point. I would say the one that comes to mind for me is start with culture. Start from the top and really instill that culture of data ownership, data management, and data importance across the organisation. Because let's be honest, again, all personal view of all these questions, but it's a people influence change. people deliver change. Yes, there's great tools, there's great software available, there's solutions, there's lots of things you can do. But if you don't get that right from the top, and often, we're talking about chief execs and C-suite, you have to role model the right behaviours of what you expect within your organisations. Make that happen, and the rest will start to progress.
Okay, so that was all very good answers, by the way. So let's assume that everyone's taken your very sound advice and we've wound the clock forward a bit, not 10 years, but 5 years. What do you think, just one use case each, what do you think that providers will be able to do then in 5 years that they are unable to do today if they've taken all of the excellent advice you've provided so far?
I'll start if you like.
Anyone?
I think truly tailor a service. We brand that about a lot at the moment. None of us are really tailoring a service at any form of scale. I think in 5 years, if we get our data foundations right and we're using it and ingesting it properly, using the likes of AI, the likes of the tech that will be in a much different place in 5 years' time, we'll be able to truly tailor and choose what to tailor rather than a broad brush approach that we all have to do at the moment.
From my side, it's really 5 years from now, I think it's about simulation. You've got a complex business, you've got a very complex and diverse customer base, and you're trying to tailor the services you provide to that customer base and understand and predict. If I changed the mix of services or the kind of things I did, what would happen? I think it's very hard for social housing providers to do that kind of scenario modelling of their business and look ahead and go, if we change these kind of things in our business, what does it mean to our tenants? So for me, the whole point about Property Sense and what we're building towards is to give you a complete view of this is what customers need today across loads of different dimensions. If I could then scenario model that and apply different techniques and ideas to the world and play it back through Property Sense, I could see what the service demand might look like, and that then informs me in terms of these are the things I need to do in the business in terms of size or shape of income teams or arrears teams. So for me, simulation is the key thing. Being able to model your business and actually start to change and do that kind of what-if type planning.
I would probably just end by saying I've got, in my mind's eye, this great diagram we've been working on recently with an organisation of like tenants, customers, residents, whatever you want to, you call them at the top. You've got your assets, your homes on the right, and you've got your colleagues on the left, and this really connected ecosystem of an organisation that, is a much longer answer for me than a minute, and I'm time bound. But what that allows you to do is provide tailorized service to really know your homes and to things like, your homes are assets as well. We talk about them as assets, but they also can tell you a lot of things about the service that your customers are receiving. So I think it's having the right data, infrastructure, solutions, culture, bringing all, people, process and tech together to deliver that really consistent, unified ecosystem of data across an organisation that will deliver multiple things for sector.
Well, it sounds like there's a lot of pieces on, will be much more efficient by then, hopefully, and make use of make use of the tools that we have. So there's a couple of minutes left. Are there any questions? If there aren't, in that case, then I would like to say thank you very much for attending. Thank you very much for your time, and we'll see you soon.
Thank you.
Thank you.
Thank you.